Hey, everybody. We have a great guest all the way from Europe today, Emily Shields, national champion, cyclocross racer, national champion in short track mountain bike, nutritionist, and not just a nutritionist, but a registered dietitian, which is a whole nother awesome level that she can bring to things that she does on the nutritional level in terms of working with her own clients on the nutritional level. So Emily, she is a cyclocross racer right now, one of the few women in Europe rocking it out on the UCI calendar, and also the nutritionist, but also a dog owner. So Emily, welcome today. I really look forward to this conversation. Thanks for joining me from Europe. But before we jump into you and talking about your cyclocross, before we start talking about your nutrition, let's talk about your Instagram, which you have a booming Instagram, by the way, and that little girl right there.
So that is my Beagle girl. Her name is Daisy. I actually rescued her in April. There's a really big Beagle rescue in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's called the Triangle Beagle Rescue. So if anyone ever wants a Beagle, definitely check out that Beagle rescue. So I have Daisy, and then I have another Beagle named Sherman, which more people know about Sherman. So two Beagles. I've always loved Beagles.
Yeah, you're famous. And so Emily and I sort of live in the same region. I guess she lives about 20 miles from me when she's back in the
Yep.
United States. And it's funny, I'll be driving around Roanoke every once in a while, and I will see Emily on her bike pulling a beagle or two beagles in a nice little bike cart behind. It's pretty funny to see. So Emily, you're in Europe right now. Where are you right now?
So I'm in Oudenaarde. It's in Belgium. It's like an hour from Brussels. Don't ask me which direction. I'm terrible at geography. So this is where I will be based out the majority of the time I'm here. It's called the Chain Stay. You can Google that. That's where I'm staying. It's kind of like a service course. And that's where I've stayed every year that I've been here so far. This is my fifth year also.
Fifth year racing the UCI calendar with the elite of the elite. And so I'm only able to watch, cyclocross on GCM Plus. And, unfortunately, how cyclocross coverage is, they only cover the front of the race. And so
Right.
I always see you at the start, but then
Yep.
they just cover all, those first two or three people in a
Yep.
cyclocross race. And so last weekend you were in France. There were 4 American females racing in that
Yep.
race. And then where will you be this weekend?
This weekend in Dublin, Ireland, there's actually a World Cup there. So I actually fly there tomorrow morning.
Nice. And then how does it work for you? So you're over there. How do you arrange accommodations? Like, how do you arrange that whole system? Do you get support from USA Cycling, or how does that work?
So I do everything on my own. So I know a lot of the development programs like junior and U23. They sometimes are with groups and they have support, but I do everything on my own. So for last weekend, the World Cup in France. I just went on Airbnb, and then this next weekend for Dublin. Um, through connections through do you know Maria Shriver, who actually races? She's from Ireland, but she was at the Trek World Cup. She works for Trek. She found host housing for me, which is really nice because apparently there's no Airbnb in Dublin, so that was going to be really, really expensive. So yeah,
Eh,
that's what I normally do.
Yeah,
I
nice.
Yeah, so I prioritize host housing if I can, like for US races, and then if I can't find anything, then usually Airbnbs, just because that's better for cooking and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. And so what is your relationship with other members of, the other females, the American females that are over there? Any relationship at all? Yeah, how
Yeah,
friendly?
I mean, like we're usually parked in similar areas. I didn't get a chance to talk to a ton of them last weekend, but I do want to try to pre-ride with them this weekend because it's just always more fun to pre-ride with people. Because a lot of times people will pre-ride the course on Saturday, so the day before. So I do try. It's nice to talk to people that you know from home. So
Yeah. And so when you're so this is what, this is a great so cyclocross is an amazing sport, but it is its own beast on so many levels, right? The skills that you have to have, the fitness that you have to have, and the daily, for me, when I think about it, it's not just that, hour that you're out there on the course. It's like this whole process, like you said, you're going to pre-ride everything, right? You're going to pre-ride the night before. You're going to pre-ride the day of, right? Lots of rain in Europe. Could be different course, completely different course one day than the next. And
For
so
sure.
talk about your process from when you wake up in the morning to the race. What time is your average cyclocross UCI race in Europe? What time does it start there in the day?
So like the World Cup schedule is actually like it's always the same. So for all of the World Cups here, the women race at 1:40.
Okay. And so that's your time. And so then obviously there's a big time. So what do you do when you
Okay.
wake up first thing in the morning all the way to when the gun goes off?
So first thing in the morning, I wake up, make pancakes. I always like to eat pancakes for like it's not the pre-race meal yet, but it's the first thing in the morning meal.
Nice.
Um, I really like to put peanut butter on my pancakes, which is a little harder to find in Europe, but it's easier now. So I'll have that, and then like usually get ready and pack stuff up because the women's ideal pre-ride window is from 11:20 to 11:50. Um, so then get everything in the car to try to get there because parking is always a nightmare in Europe. It's not like home where there's like big nice parking lots. You're like parked on the side of the street or like a teeny tiny parking lot or like you never really know. So usually try to leave at like 10ish for the race. So between 10 and 10:30, that's when I'll eat my pre-race meal, which is always rice and 2 eggs and salt. So I'll eat that in the car on the way to the race, park, and then while the mechanics are getting the bikes ready and stuff, I'll get ready to pre-ride. Pre-ride from 11:20 to 11:50. Then there's like a little bit of time to relax, and then I usually get on the trainer an hour before race time, so that would be 12:40. So I do that on the trainer for about 30 minutes, and then
What kind of efforts are you doing on the trainer?
like usually I do some tempo, I do a few all out efforts,
Yeah.
and then I'll do a couple sprints.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, then get off early to go to the start and find some sort of porta-john. Bathrooms are also non-existent here because almost all the racers have their own RV. I don't, so like it's always really a challenge
Oh,
finding a bathroom, so that is always a nightmare. And then go to the start, and then it's cool because like if you ever watch any of the races on TV, you can ride up and down the start straight away before staging starts, so like you can keep spinning your legs instead of just
right.
standing there. So I
Right.
like to
Right.
do that. And then call up start. So yeah, that is basically it.
So when you get off the trainer, how much time is it between that and when the gun goes off?
So I probably get off a little earlier than some people just because I freaking panic about being late. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
continue to spin up and down the start straight away. So it's not like I'm
Yeah.
doing nothing. So
Right.
I get off 30 minutes before because I went
Okay.
like 15 minutes to find time to find a porta john and then like 15 minutes before the actual race starts.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I
There's a you can geek out on that little moment right there between that trainer and those hard efforts and that gun goes off. There's like you can just geek out forever on papers and research. And one person's like, no, you need 10 minutes. And the next person's like, no, you need 11 minutes. And it's fascinating. Like, that process for the cyclocross and to me, and so I coach cyclocross, many or juniors right now, and they're all headed to nationals here in America and stuff. And so for me, that's one of the big things that we experiment on, and we really try to dial in is
Right.
your day of process. You know,
Yeah.
because obviously you have the skills and everything which you need, and you're not going to get any fitness that day, but it really is that the day of process of making sure that you're fueled from the time that you wake up in the morning to the
Yep.
time the gun goes off, right? And make sure that you have everything
Right.
that your body needs. And so on a cyclocross race day, you have your race time. How much time do you think you're actually on the bike?
I think it's between like it's usually around 2 hours, 2.5 max, but it's probably more around 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So so that's still, even though, you're on the trainer, that you're still burning, even if you're, looking at the course, pre-riding the course a little bit,
Yep.
that's still work. And so the in terms of cyclocross racing, one of the things that I think is so fascinating, the difference between American cyclocross racing and European cyclocross racing is that when you're in America, the audience is most likely other cyclocross racers,
Yeah,
right? And
right,
when you're in Europe, that's not the case. You've got
right.
like the community, towns are
Yeah.
coming to this big event. And so, how are well, first of all, how is that? Do you like that? And then second of all, where they're actually located. Are the cyclocross events actually located in a more convenient environment for the audience?
I mean, like, okay, so in terms of like the courses and like the terrain, that is super cool. Like there's way more off cambers, up and down hills, like
Yeah,
nothing's flat. Like the courses are really cool.
yeah,
But logistically, sometimes it's a nightmare. Like I mentioned, like parking can be really difficult. Like you're in these
yeah,
because the races are sometimes in these teeny tiny towns. Like it takes over the town, which is
yeah,
really cool. But it's not like at home where we have these like massive, nice parking lots or like big fields of parking.
yeah.
But the courses are really cool. It is cool how many spectators there are, and like so they charge spectators. So like I think some things people don't realize in Europe, there's no entry fees, so that's really nice as a racer to not have to pay to race. And then like there's tons of spectators, but sometimes I feel like the cheering can be better at home. Like at home, I feel like
Oh,
we tend to cheer for everybody, but here they cheer more so for the beginning of the race. And like they still do a little bit, but like you would expect way more cheering for the amount of people that are out there. Like if
okay.
you okay, so like sometimes when I've watched like the men's race after, if you go to like a section of the course where like Wout and Vanderpool are dueling it out, you can hear where they are around the course by listening to the cheering. Like it's just crazy.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. And so what else is different about, you talked about the
Yeah.
course, the audience. What else is different about European
Um,
cyclocross racing?
So yeah, the course definitely more technical, always more technical than home. Partly because it's muddier here, but partly because I feel like they have more terrain and stuff to work with. Um, the racing is much more aggressive. So like you can be doing like I did not have a great race last weekend, but like still whoever you're racing with, like even if you're almost last, like they're super aggressive. At home, I feel like we tend to like you let someone pass or like you're just nicer, but I also think the bigger difference is the fields are bigger and more competitive. So like at home in a UCI race, like you kind of settle into your spot where like the next person is a minute ahead of you and a minute behind you and you're just kind of time trialing. But here there's always so many people around you. So the aggressiveness, that's one thing. The other biggest difference is the races are closer together because like Europe is smaller, so like you don't have to travel so much. So like yes, I'm flying to Dublin this weekend, but that's unusual. Like so many of the races are in Belgium or the Netherlands, so you don't have to drive that far. Like 2 hours is considered far, which would be nothing at home.
How does your bike get to Dublin? Are you taking two bikes to Dublin? How do you do that?
My mechanic will fly with me, so we'll each take one of the bikes.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. And so it's, I watch all the cyclocross races. So I watch the men's and the women's. And sometimes I'll watch them. I love the announcers. And so I love to hear the announcers. So sometimes I'll watch a race two or three times. This
Yeah.
last weekend was Alvarado won. I think it
Yep.
was her first big win of the season. She's got a lot of second places to Kim Van Empel, but Kim stayed out this weekend. Are you so I love it, right? So I'm listening to these, the announcers, and I love it, and I'll go back. But do you ever get to watch the races, or do you go back and watch the races themselves?
Yeah, I usually do at least the beginning. Like sometimes I don't watch the whole race, but at least
Right.
like the first half, unless it's an exciting finish. Because I really like to see what they do on sections of the course compared to what I did. So like I like to see if they're taking different lines or like if I ran something, if they wrote it.
Yeah.
So I do like to rewatch it.
One of the announcers, like, so that's a great point, like what you're saying. So, like, all the people that I work with, all the athletes that I work with, I really want them to watch the races, right? To see the skills, to see how they're handling some things. And there's some crazy skills going on. And about three races ago, one of the announcers, a female ex-pro cyclocross racer, she went on a 3-minute tangent, and a 3-minute tangent in this broadcast world is like an eternity, but it was
Yeah.
so good because she was talking about the difference in the racing now and say the difference in the racing 10, 15 years ago was just what you said. You're going back, you're rewatching how other people are doing the course. You're learning skills quicker and faster than they were, 20 years ago, just simply
Right.
because you have that replay process and all that. And it does. And, every lap they figure things out by lap 2 or 3, they have their lines figured out and all that kind of stuff. And so, that's a great comment. Now, when you're on the bike in race, there's different strategies, right? So this weekend, you can see it. Like sometimes a cyclocross racer will put a gel up their bib. I only saw it once. She taped it to her top tube, right? What do you do for nutrition through, in race nutrition? Do you anything?
I don't. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people do, especially like I did notice walking around and watching the men's race, like it was literally right at 30 minutes. A lot of them took a gel. I don't personally because I feel like if you're well fueled and you've been fueling leading up to the race and the morning of, that you can make it those 50 minutes and be fine.
Yeah.
I also feel like I'm just going all out so much I would vomit trying to take a gel. Um, but I think that's kind of personal preference.
Yeah.
I don't
And
think
so
it's necessary.
yeah, and so like, you're saying you're going all out. And so, one of the things about cyclocross is you've got to get your inner beast on. Tell me about your inner beast.
Uh, I mean, I definitely need to work on it. I'm not as aggressive as I really need to work on that. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, the start is really important here, the first lap. I think because people
Yeah.
are so aggressive and there's so many, like the fields are pretty big, like so much bigger than home. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to say on that.
Yeah, I look at people, I study people's faces and see how they're doing and things like that. Obviously, this year, Kim Van Empel's been getting, all the attention. The camera is pretty much on her, and she is just solid, just almost kind of robotic. I've never, I've seen like Alvarado, I've seen different expressions on her face, and it's pretty cool. And so yeah, it's great watching. Everybody should watch it. It's a great sport. I love it. Now, so let's talk about your nutrition. So you're a professional racer. You're over there in Europe, and this is, like you said, this is your 5th year doing this on this circuit, but you also have, your main job, your main career is a performance nutritionist working with athletes as a coach. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I primarily work with cyclists, but I will work with all athletes. Um, I
Yeah, there was something on your website that was really good that hit me, and that you you want to you want everybody to be happy. So
yeah,
you have
yeah,
your performance nutrition, but if someone were to come to you at say 250 pounds, we're like, okay, we're gonna figure out the best way to get you healthy, wealthy, and wise at at 250 pounds. I think
right.
that's
Like
what you meant by it.
I don't like to focus on weight loss. I don't promise weight loss. I more like to focus on like eating well and fueling well, and like doing everything you can to feel good and maybe weight loss will come as a part of that, but I don't like to focus on that because I also I am anti-diet and I specialize in diseating orders and disordered eating as well. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
that's my thought.
I love that, by the way. And so for me, it's the same thing. It's like I tell athletes I work with, I'm not looking at your 6 week weight loss goal. I don't want you to think about 6 weeks. I want you to think about 6 years, right? How can you eat healthily for 6 years, right? And if you get certain things out of your diet, you bring certain things into your diet, it's fascinating how you will lose weight in a healthy a super healthy way. So, my own story was I'm 51 now. When I was 38 years old, I swam for my university. I was a swimmer all through my 30s. But when I was 35, I went off the rails, man. And by 38, I went from like 165 to 255 pounds. And I was always thinking about weight. I was always stressing about the food that I ate. Like, and to lose 10 pounds was insane. Like, I was driving myself crazy to go from 255 to 245. And that sounds kind of ridiculous, but that was the mental mindset that I was in. And but now, I weigh myself like every 3 or 4 months. I weighed myself the other day. I was 165 pounds. I have my, and I've been rolling like this ever since, for 15 years, now. And so I just have all the foods in my house that I know that are great, that fuel me through the day, that I really enjoy. I don't have anything else. And I have my routines and my habits. And so I never think about my weight, and I never, I think about quality a lot, like how to get the best
Right.
quality sourced meats and things like that, which is
Right.
kind of fun. But I never think about, like, I'm never stressed about it at all. And so right now, it's funny, it was when I was at 255 pounds, I had a terrible relationship with the concept of weight loss. And now that I'm at 165 pounds and have been for years, it's just a habit. It's like something that I think about. I'll never go back to that person who was 250 pounds. I'll never go back to that lifestyle. So when I read that on your website, about that you don't focus on diets and things like that. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And so for those of you who want to hire, I have a few more questions, but we'll put her website in the show notes down below.
Right.
Um, so what
And
is
then
your
just
yeah,
one thing I would like to point out is, I mean, some people may be in larger bodies, but that doesn't mean that they're not healthy. I think that we do get too focused on weight as being the only indicator as of health, but there's other indicators as well, like stress, what you eat, genetics, sleep. It's important to look at lab values like your cholesterol, your blood sugar, etc. And I don't think that the focus should be on weight. So sorry, that was my little tangent.
no, I agree. And so, like, here, you talk about blood results, right? So I'm all about blood results as well. It's like this book it stays with me all the time. I love lab values, really check under the engine. Yeah, so I think that's a great. So tell me about your process. Someone comes to you and
Yep.
on the performance route, okay? So
Yep.
they want to get better on the performance
Yep.
route. What is your process in working with that client?
Right. Okay. So typically, the most common plan is people will sign up at first to work with me for a month. Some people are fine with just having that 1 month. Some people need several months. But everyone usually starts with a month. I have a week option, but I don't think that's long enough. I prefer if people start with a month. So I have an assessment form that I have them fill out that just gives me a little more background information, their goals, etc. I'll do 4 Zoom calls over the period of the month. The first one is a lot of background, getting more information, etc. And then we'll do like ride fueling, like pre, during, post ride fueling. We can do day-to-day nutrition if they need like some help with some general meal planning. I have access to just a ton of good, fairly easy, because I don't like to cook, recipes. So like we'll work on all these things over the month. During the 4 Zoom calls, but also I use an app called Nourishly, where my clients can take pictures of their food, because I don't want them to use MyFitnessPal or anything like that. I do think it is eating disorder promoting and diet promoting, and like you get too focused on the numbers and not how you feel, like if you're hungry, full, etc.
Yeah.
So they take pictures of their food, and then I can see it on my phone, so I can comment on it. So I use that, and it's less time consuming than MyFitnessPal. So yeah, I mean that's basically it.
Yeah, no, so that's great. I mean, again, I'll say it again. I love your approach to all this. And now, so there are, people might not know that this is a very interesting field, a very interesting industry. And so, kind of at the bottom rung is a certified sports nutritionist or a certified nutritionist. And they actually have a very limited scope of what that license can do. You are like at the top of the chain, right? You're a registered dietitian. Explain that concept. What is a registered dietitian?
So like basically like it means I went to school for nutrition. I have my master's in nutrition. It's now required that you have to have your master's. You used to just have to have your undergrad in nutrition. And then you have to do a 10-month dietetic internship. And then you become a registered dietitian. So like I can also I can in states that I'm licensed, Virginia doesn't require licensure, but also North Carolina, I can also practice medical nutrition therapy. Like I also work part-time at a long-term care facility in Fincastle and a rehab center in Lowmore as the dietitian for
Okay.
both of those places.
Right, right.
Um, so I just think it means that you are qualified and you've gone to school for nutrition and you haven't just done a weekend training course.
Yeah, no. So, like the sports certified person, it takes about a month or so, like you're saying, right? And so you have to, for you to be a registered dietitian, it takes years and years and years. And
Correct.
what's one of the interesting differences is that the scope, like there's different scopes. So the scope of a certified nutritionist, basically they can talk about general ideas, general macros, general strategies. But you talked about, you used the word yourself, you used the word therapy, in that you can actually prescribe meals. So like when you write a prescription, you can write a meal plan. And we call that, in this industry, like you can prescribe a meal plan for therapy. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Right. Yeah. So like sometimes people do come to me for meal plans and they do like meal plans. I try to caution people against always doing meal plans because I do feel like it's very rigid and strict, but I
Yeah.
more like to do like general meal planning. Like we come up with the meal plan together, based on what the client does or doesn't like. Um, but yeah, I mean, I
For
don't
on
know
your
too much.
performance side. So I just think that's cool. I think it's a really cool way to think about it, right? Because
Yeah.
it goes all the way back to Hippocrates, where he said, let food be thy medicine. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like
Right.
you're literally prescribing good
Right.
food to heal you, to make you better. So
Right.
I just love that thinking, right?
And
Um,
I can like make sure like a lot of the big mistakes, so like either people aren't eating enough carbs, they aren't eating enough protein, so like you can definitely address that through meals,
That
recipes.
was my next question. So when a performer comes to you, a performance athlete comes to you, um, what is there one single, food group, something that they're usually missing or not getting enough of in their day?
No, well, so okay, the most common things I see, either people aren't eating enough, like they're going hours and hours of eating without eating all day. So like as an athlete, you ideally want to eat every 3 to 4 hours or 3 meals and 2 to 3 snacks. So they're skipping the snacks because they're too busy, or maybe they're skipping meals. Sometimes I will have people trying to avoid carbs. As athletes, we know we need carbs for our muscles, for the muscle glucose. Recovery nutrition, that's always a big thing that we have to work on.
Good, good, good.
People will pack like recovery, like a recovery shake for the race, but then they'll forget like the time they're at the race until they go home and eat dinner. So I'm always encourage also packing a meal to have after you have your recovery shake, and don't rely on the food trucks because like you never know what's going to be there. um I think those are the most common things. And ride fueling. Some people are really good about it. Some people haven't practiced it very much. The general recommendation is 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour, up to 90. Most people can't tolerate over 90 grams of carbs
Yeah.
per hour. So I always recommend practicing that.
Yeah. And so yeah, for me, it's always, there's like everything you just said. The fueling is really important. On the bike fueling is really important, but one of the things that when you know for me, it's protein. So when I talk about protein, like that's one of the biggest things, and that I think, in my opinion, Americans are chronically not getting enough protein. Like if you lay out like how much protein, do you have a protein recommendation, like 1.3, 1.4 grams per kilogram for the performance athlete,
Yeah.
or
Uh,
1.8, or 2.0, or what's your recommendation?
yeah. So basically everything you just said. So 1.2 to 2 grams per kilogram body weight. I like to do the range because like some days I do think it's okay if you're in the lower end of the range. If you have a really big training week, maybe you should try to be more to the 2 grams per kilogram body weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think you need to go over that. You don't need to go over the 2.2 because like research does show that your body won't absorb it. You can only also have so much protein at once. So that's why you do want to have frequent meals and snacks throughout the day because like you can't not eat well during the day and then try to get like 50 grams of protein in at dinner. Your body will not absorb that. So I do think that is really important to pay attention to as well.
Yeah, and so that's and if you actually lay out like so, for me, if I'm on 180 grams of protein, if you lay out like all that protein in a day, that's a lot of protein, and you really have to come up with a strategy. You really have to do food prep. That's the only way I can do it. I just can't be, grilling every day, all day. I do a
Yeah.
lot of food prep, a lot of crock pots and things like that to get that through the day. Well, Emily, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to see what you do this weekend in Dublin. And yeah, so I'll just continue follow and watch you race in Europe. And thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for having me.